As COVID recedes here in the U.S., the media's coverage of the pandemic is shifting. Efforts to contain the disease are yesterday's news, but the origins of COVID are now getting a second look, including the possibility that a lab leak in China unleashed the virus on the world. Adam has more.
As the COVID crisis escalated, then President Trump pointed an accusatory finger at the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
Probably it was incompetent. Somebody was stupid.
By and large, though, the media discounted the lab leak theory.
The president wants desperately for the storyline to read that this was a Chinese-originated crisis.
But now, all of a sudden, that idea is being taken very seriously.
Some government officials are considering the theory that the coronavirus may have leaked from a lab in Wuhan, China.
Several researchers at China's Wuhan Institute of Virology, that is, a lab there in Wuhan, fell ill in November 2019.
The president expects a conclusive report within 90 days.
So what changed? For starters, new U.S. intelligence, new pressure from scientists, and some impressive new reporting.
When I investigated the lab leak question and the Wuhan Institute of Virology, there is smoke coming out of every single window.
Also, it's no longer just conservatives making the case.
I was one of the first people to say it, and then President Trump said it as well. And let's just say that most folks in the media don't care for our politics.
But lately, for the media and everyone else, the line between politics and science is murky at best.
Adam, there's definitely a political charge to this, but I felt all along that the media had this storyline kind of as a continuing theory, a possibility. So I don't know. I think the introspection is interesting, but I'm not sure that it was ever completely dismissed as a possibility.
I wouldn't say it was completely dismissed, but I also don't think it was mainstream for the better part of the last year. I should say, I think it was clear that President Trump was more interested in blaming China than working seriously to control the virus here in the U.S. And his rhetoric, his talk of the China virus, seems to have had real consequences. We saw that uptick in anti-Asian crime last year. But neither of those things mean that the lab leak theory is wrong. I think a lot of people inside the media and outside the media make the mistake when we're sizing up an argument of looking at who is making it or why they're making it or where it could lead. Those things are all important, but they don't tell you if something is true or not. And I think we pass judgment, the media and socially, prematurely here.
I think over the last 4 or 5 years, we've heard a lot about how Trump and Republicans and everything and the attacks on the media caused people to trust the media less. I don't think we've heard a lot about how those same attacks caused the media to trust their sources less. We became, instead of just healthily skeptical about lots of things, we became overly skeptical depending on who the source was. And I think in this case, since the people who are mostly talking about it, as Adam said, were also kind of pushing the racial aspect of it and looking for blame, I think a lot of media automatically had this knee-jerk reaction of saying, well, no, obviously this is just a blame game. Let's look for the real reason. So I'd say our skepticism meters got ratcheted up a bit too high, and we needed to pull back. And I see the pullback is what's happening now.
I would agree with that. I would blame the media generally for knee-jerkily dismissing the possibility just because the president said it. It seemed to, I think, fit in the basket of all his other anti-China rhetoric at the time. You have to remember, though, in that soundbite we showed, he didn't just suggest that it could have accidentally leaked. He also said maybe somebody did something on purpose. And so that didn't help, I think, the rhetoric at the time. I would point out that not everybody missed the boat. Last September, Boston Magazine wrote a really complete and compelling piece suggesting that this could have happened. It's worth reading. They cited the work of Alina Chen at the Broad Institute at Harvard and MIT. It's absolutely fascinating reading. Her very thorough work essentially found that the speed and manner that the virus infected humans pointed to a lab escape at that time. Of course, conservatives loved that article, and people in the mainstream media and mainstream medicine did not like it. The question is now sort of where does the media go and what does the media learn? Where does this story go? It seems to be pointing to Dr. Fauci and the work that was contracted to this lab and this sort of thing. So Who knows if we'll ever find out what really happened?
Exactly.
Bottom line, I don't think we're ever going to find out. It probably won't.
Yeah. Look, I don't like it. I don't like any aspect of the story. I think unbiased, completely objective journalism is too common now. In this case, it's pretty clear the political bias drove the narrative. But my point is and my thing is I see this happening on all levels. I see it locally, in sports coverage. I even saw it a lot during the COVID-19 coverage. You know, I really like what Dan Kettery, our colleague, wrote this week, that the whole point of journalism is to seek truth and report it. And not only in this case did the media fail on it, I just see it happening way too much. I think it's becoming the norm rather than the exception. And it's a growing trend. You know, I don't see this as a one-off, and it really concerns me.
You know, Alberto, there was a lot of reporting. I mean, most of the time people were concerned about containing the virus, and the stories were all about, you know, the ravages of the disease here in the U.S. But there were other theories that people were looking into. You remember the wet market in Wuhan? So, I mean, I feel like there was always something sort of simmering about trying to get to the truth that you're speaking of.
But like I said, I mean, I've seen it on the local level and everything. I'm just concerned that right now, objective journalism is a rarity, and we're seeing less and less of it. And I'm not just including traditional media. I'm throwing in social media, too, and all of these other websites and so forth that, you know, my daughter sees every day. She's enclosed in these bubbles where they don't get the full story.
To give credit where it's due, you know, we mentioned the Boston Magazine piece earlier. Josh Rogan was looking at this periodically, the columnist. Nicholson Baker, the author, dived into this. So there were people who were doing it. But again, I think Alberto's right in that they were the exceptions rather than the rule.